but it's not, the B is not hard either. We are on, Zainam and Beis, right? Locha Beis. Haisa Sadeh is Ruach Chitim. Very easy to come out of the first plot. Haisa Sadeh is Ruach Chitim. Your field was planted already with wheat. V'nimach l'zor starting the day and change mind is how you're going to plant the barley. You have to wait until the seeds, the planted seeds, become wormy. Wormy meaning that they've rotted. Rotted meaning that they've taken hold in the ground, right? Once they've taken hold in the ground, then you can turn them over. You turn over the ground. In other words, you plow it under. And then you can plant the wheat. Okay, Dr. Snell? Yes.
My mother promised my
There's no comparison. I didn't even know you could say such a thing. I was practically heretical. Okay. Haisa Sadeh, let's start again. Haisa Sadeh is Ruach Chitim. Your land was planted with wheat. You change your mind, decide to plant the barley. So you wait until it takes hold with root, and then you turn it over, and then you can plant the barley. If it grew already, lo yomar, in other words, you already have wheat coming out of the ground. You can't say Ezra, first I'll plant the barley. And then I'll turn over the ground. No. Then you're going to be having kilayim growing there, right? Because you have to first uproot the chitim before you put in the sorim, right? First you uproot it, and then you plant. How much must you plow under of the field? Ketalme haravia. It has to be like the way you plant the way you plow. When you're plowing after the second rain, which is a comprehensive plowing. You have to plow in the field in a constant, comprehensive fashion between the chitim and the sorim. Abishol Omer, not so comprehensive, rather, Kadesh Lo Yishai Rova Beisah, in order that it shouldn't remain that measure of a quarter to a Beisah, which is the same measure we had in the previous Mishnah, right? A quarter of Rova the Beisah, and of course the Gemara is going to pick up on the comparison, right? Ad Kamahi, now here's a mistake, should be a Kami Metalas. How long does it take for the seed to get wormy? In other words, to take root? Ad Kadesh She'ebar Shlosh Yomim, for 3 days. But Mokum, that's in moist ground, literally mud. Avol, however, in the next word also the Rav Siruleo takes out, Avol b'mokum agreed, in a place where it's dry, boy, he yoiser requires a little bit more, but not much more. The Tanike, we also in the Brisa, mitzvah sayom kikula b'mokum atina. In the place where it's muddy, so a little bit of the day is if it's the whole day. So really in a place where it's muddy, it's 2 days and a few seconds, right? A few minutes, like Lahavdi, Rachman al-Islam, like Avelus, right? Just like by Avelus, it says Shiva is really 6 days plus a few minutes in the morning. So too here the shiur is 2 days plus a few minutes in the morning. But that's only where it's muddy. Where it's not muddy, it takes a full day on the third day. Period. Vim tzimcha, what if the wheat is already grown? However, if Arit Bamtel Usoch, you brought your animal down into the field, the Kirtamasa and your animal grazed the field, then you're allowed immediately after the animal goes through to plant barley there in the field. Now I want to emphasize something. Even if there's stuff left, this is going to be crucial in the entire parak, even if there's stuff left there, doesn't matter, because you already Megala Das, that you don't want the chitim which are there. You made them animal fodder. So therefore, once your animal's gone through there, even if there's something left here and there, that's already not kilayim, right? Again, because kilayim is subjective, not objective.
Okay. It sort of struck me going back a couple lines.
Yeah.
It's Nixasum Kakul, like you said, it's by Avelus. It's
right.
Something. It's a rule that's applied not by when you're talking about a practical matter. You're talking about
surprise.
Right.
Right.
Here we're saying
that's right.
Using the principle for a practical matter, how long it takes for the seed to.
That's right. Exactly.
That's a very unusual.
Maybe, but that's what we're saying. Seeing here, you're correct. We've never seen that by something practical, only by something halachic. Right. That's right. Okay, live and learn. That's what we learn here at Kilayim. Okay, says Gemara. How else could I answer it?
It's just like unusual.
Yeah.
It just struck me.
My Tara the Rabbanim, what's the logic of Rabbanim? Mikevin Shnosa Daito Lachrosh. So Rabbanan hold that once you had in mind to be choresh, afilu lo ratzak, you plow, but you don't have to plow mamish every furrow right next to each other, just like the comprehensive plowing which you plow after the second rain. There is a brisa. In other words, I should make that clear. Before you plant the field, beginning of the season, you do an even more comprehensive plowing. Right? You turn over every single piece of dirt. After the second rain, you don't turn over every single piece of dirt. You just want the rains to get mixed in. So therefore you do comprehensive plowing, but not as spaced close together. So that's what Rabbanan is saying. That's sufficiently comprehensive. That second plowing is sufficiently comprehensive in order to consider it to be no longer a wheat field, but now it's suitable to plant barley in it. Okay? Says the Gemara, Tani, we learned to the Brisa, you don't have to plow very tight furrows. They're in there. I don't know if she knows where it's. Okay, there was a woman there. I'm not sure what she was looking for. What? Maybe looking for the video. It's upstairs. Rather, again, like we said in the Mishnah, the amount of the furrows of a revia the furrows which you have when after the second rain. When you do this plowing, you should do like the zon of asus, like a horse's tail. That the end of this dirt should reach the end of the beginning of this dirt. And here's a little picture. See, each furrow should be connected, kind of like a radio wave, right? Sine wave, right? So that's the way it should be connected. Okay, so it should be a continuous, uninterrupted furrow. Says the Gemara, that's called like zon of asus because all the hairs in a horse's tail are connected. Right? My time with Abishol, what's the logic of Abishol? Abishol says all you have to diminish it is to less than the proportion which you had in the previous Mishnah. Why? Once you diminish it to less than Rova Dayo. That's sufficient because that's the portion of the previous Mishnah. Ma Abishol Rabbi Yossi. How do we learn Rabbi Shol according to Rabbi Yossi Shita? Now Rabbi Yossi said in the previous Mishnah holds that once you start taking out, when it's too over proportion, when you start taking out the quarter of a pound from the 6 pounds, you have to take out the entire quarter pound. Rabbanan in the previous Mishnah do is mimamite, but he holds you have to take out the entire thing, right? So what about what would he hold according to Rabbi Yossi in this Mishnah? Says Gemara, Karabbanani. Abba Shol Tak is saying Shita like Rabbanan, who say Amrei, who said Mikem Shnos and Daitul Lachrosh. Once you start plowing a few low rutzap, even into a every very narrow, very tight furrows, that's sufficiently. Abba Shol says, on that he's even more makel. Abba Shol, he says Mikem Shishcha Barova Dayo. Once you diminished it, so there's no less than that shear of 1/24th, that's sufficient. Rabbi Yossi, however, of course, would say that Tzorach Lashlim is called a Rova. You would have to complete the entire thing, just like in the previous Mishnah, you'd have to take out the 1/24th. So therefore, really, in the Rabbanon Shita, Abba Shol Rabbi Yossi would have a machlokas. Nobody holds you have to make tight furrows. But the question is, in these non-tight furrows, how thorough do you have to be? So Rabbi Shol says you only have to be thorough enough to get rid that there's no proportion of 1/24th. According to Rabbi Yossi, once you start, you have to be thorough enough to go through everything, make those Talmei Revia throughout the entire field. Okay? Similarly, Zrua, you had Palocha Gimel, you had a field which was planted with grain. You decide to plant grapevines there. Lo Yamara Tzavachaka Chovach, you can't say, I'm going to plant the grapevines. By the way, in Hebrew, I should point that out, even though it's obvious, Zera, and Lizroa is by grain, Netia and Lintoa are by trees. Okay, so that's Zrua V'nilach Lito, right? It was planted with grain, and then you decide to plant it with trees. In English, it's the same word. There's no distinction, but in Hebrew, there are different verbs. Lo Yomar Eta, you shouldn't say first I'll plant the trees. V'achaka Chovach, and then I'll turn over. And then I'll turn over the dirt. And plant afterward, subsequently, turn over the trees, and then plant the No, turn over the grain. And then, afterwards, Elof, first you have to turn over the grain, and then plant the grapevines afterwards. Nutua and vice versa. If it was ready to plant those grapevines, and then you change your mind and decide to plant it with wheat. Lo Yomar, you can't say Ezra, I'll plant the wheat, and then uproot the grapevines. El Masharesh, you have to uproot the grapevines, and then only afterwards plant the grain. Imratza. However, there is a kula by grapevines. Imratza, if you want, as long as you cut down the trunks to within a tefach of the ground, that's sufficient. The zorea gabean. If the zorea v'chagam mashrish, in that case, you can plant the grain and only afterwards complete the removal of the stumps. Because a stump of less than a tefach in height is considered to be as if it's completely gone. Okay? Kanbus or loof. You're planting marijuana. Cannabis, as you know, is marijuana. What's loof? Perek Beis Halacha Gimel. A Mishnah Gimel.
Spas,
Loofah towels. Yeah, I don't think
it's a plant.
it's a plant, yeah. Mr. Zucker, we depend on you. Chapter 2. Chapter 2, Mishnah 3. Caraway, he translates cannabis. Cannabis is cannabis. He speaks about that in the parish here, or arum, whatever arum is, ARUM. I'm sure that helps us all. In any event, if it was planted cannabis or arum, lo yezoreh bo gabein, you can't plant grain on top of them. Sheino sin elu shol shonim, because cannabis, even though it looks like the cannabis ain't growing, so what's the problem? The thing is, it takes 3 years to grow a cannabis plant. It's a big investment in marijuana. What do you think you know why? That's why they charge such high prices for it, right?
This normally refers to hemp because
Yeah. So since it takes 3 years for it to grow, so therefore, since that is the case, you can't assume just because it's not there, there's nothing there. No, it's underneath the ground, and that's why you have to plow before you plant on top of it. What? The grain runs around more here. But you decide to go straight. That's the shot. You have grain in which paint plants have started growing. These are plants which are not edible, but they make a color. So therefore they're used for dyes and stains. And so to a place where you want to make a silo. That means you want clear ground. In which various different types of grain have started growing because of the seeds which get left there over time. Tilson, and so to Tilson. What's Tilson? Does it say that? Yeah. I think it is fenugreek, that's right. So for fenugreek, shelamine asavim, which other grass are growing, in all these cases, we don't make you start uproot them. Why? Because in all these cases, the interlopers, the strange plants which come in, are weeds. You don't like them there. Since you don't like them, it's not kilayim, right? Where is the kilayim? Only where it's something which is beneficial to you. Such as if among wheat, barley grows, it's not bad for you, you don't care, right? But where it's a weed, where you have paint plants among grain plants, or where you have various different types of plants growing together, but it's a place where you don't want any because it's a goren. Or you have fenugreek, which has all sorts of grass they're growing dispersed in it. You don't make you uproot the weeds. What if you started, however, to hoe or to weed out? Omer lo, so then we say akorsa kol chutz min echad. That is, we say once you start, it shows that you're sensitive to this. In this case, you already have to start doing the whole thing. Okay, because otherwise it looks like you're being mekayim kilayim in the field. So therefore, you have to get rid of everything, every last bit, once you started the hoeing process. Tani, we learn somchin amorim b'tzad kfarim. One is allowed to pile Omorim, to pile piles of grain next to grapevines. Rabbi Yosef said, Hadamra, the fact that it says you're allowed to plant to pile piles of grain next to grapevines tells us that even if it was dry grain but was still affixed to the ground, it's prohibited to put that in juxtaposition to grapevines. Why? Because here it says specifically Omorim, but they're already disconnected from the ground. The Gra takes out the next word Yavesh because it doesn't fit into the context here. What about the other direction? Are you allowed to plant grain next to dry grapevines? Let's learn from the violent case. A grapevine which became dry, asura, it's forbidden to plant next to it. But if you plant the grain next to it, it doesn't make the grain prohibited, because the grapevine has shriveled and withered and it's dead. Rabbi Lois said to Rabbi Meir, this is Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir is so makpi that he doesn't even allow you to plant grain next to dead grapevines. Makmi Rabbi Meir is Rafilu Tzemer Hagefen Osir Ve'enu Mekadesh. He even forbade you to plant wheat next to cotton. Cotton is called Tzemer Gefen in Hebrew. Since the word Gefen appears in the context, I guess I'm not sure why. Maybe it goes in clusters. I know why it's called Tzemer Gefen in Hebrew. But since the word Gefen appears in the context, it's usher to plant next to it where wheat plants. It's like a Marisayin on Kilayim. So it says Gemara, Hadam Merah, this teaches us that Rabbi Meir is the one who's so machmir. What? Teaches Rabbi Meir so machmir? Greg, cotton does grow in clusters?
I'm drawing upon my 4th grade project.
There you go. Report on Eli Whitney. What is?
Yeah.
Okay.
You made your tour on the west side of
Yeah. Okay. We should have warned. We would have turned off the tape recorder before you made that comment. So these are being distributed by Torah tapes in New York. Hada Mara. This teaches us. Shemuter lezera b'tzad in front of Yeveshus. According to Rabbanan, of course, not according to Meir. According to Rabbanan, was allowed to plant grain next to dry grapevines. Now, going back to the Mishnah, what happens if now you cut your grapevines down to within a tefach of the ground? Now they grew back, but you already have wheat there. Vim tzamchu, if now the grapevines grew back, despite the fact that you cut them within a tefach of the ground, mutaris l'shavar, that which already grew is permitted, because whatever grew till now is beheter. V'asur slasi, whatever grows now subsequently you have to, is forbidden. You must immediately go and uproot or recut down those grapevines. Kada, like similar to this, in this vein, kada means in this vein, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda gum with a kamatz. Gum Karmaya, he cut his kerem down to the ground, right, to within a tef of the ground. Amlari say at that point he said to a sharecropper, Puksra, go out and plant, right, plant grain. Mean the zara, after the sharecropper planted, smachin, the grapevines grew back. Amrale, so he said to a sharecropper, Pukchatat, go and harvest the grain quickly because otherwise it's going to become awesome. Mean the chatzat, in the meantime, after he had harvested the grain, artivin, which means that the grapevines became wormy and rotted into nothingness. Amarle, at that point he said, Puk samach, go back and plant the grain again. So this is following on the principle we just stated. Rabbi Zira asked the question, Ad Kidun, Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Shorim Eladas Gemura. Maybe this only Rabbi Shimon Yehuda was an upstanding, righteous person. So when he said that he doesn't want grapevines, he meant he didn't want grapevines. So Das Gemura. It's like we say in Talmud Bavli, Kamuru Stas. Right? He was Gomer Bedato. He had complete intent. Sharpening them, sharing Das Gemura. What about other people who might not have complete intent to uproot their grapevines? Maybe, secretly they want their grapevines to grow next to their wheat. Says the Gemara, no. I feel Rabbi Shimon Yehuda ain't also mishum marasayin. Meaning, even other people because the point of Rishon Ben Yehuda is only also because of Marasayin. Meaning that the truth is the stumps of a geffen, even they start growing again, don't aser. Why is it aser? Because of Marasayin. It doesn't look right. So therefore, even if it starts growing again, it's not the bona fide Isra of Kilayim. So therefore, even other people we don't know have such K'mir stars to get rid of their vineyards, even if they're not so upright and upstanding like Rishon Ben Yehuda, that's enough. We can rely on them and let them get away with this issue of being gum, of chopping within a tap of the ground, and then planting grain in that area. Okay, Brisa, Tani, we learned. Yoshua, and this is Yoshua ben Nun. Oh, I made a mistake. Sorry. Tonight, Yoshua. This is the condition made by Yoshua. It's a condition made by Yoshua ben Nun when they came to the conquered land of Israel. That when it's allowed to go into anybody's field and start gathering grass. In other words, grass is always considered to be a weed, right? Unless you're growing a lawn. It's a modern American thing, right? But in the old days when they didn't have lawns, so grass was a weed. It was harmful. So therefore anybody can go into anybody else's field and start plucking out grass.
The sheep and the cows graze though.
They wouldn't graze in fields though. It was growing in the middle of somebody else's field. Okay? So, but not in fenugreek fields. Because the fenugreek fields, the grass is good. And this is what Gemara is going to discuss now. Now, the Gemara here is out of order. The Beer doesn't say it, and the Mashbiach doesn't say it, but it's clear to me the Gemara here is out of order. So then here we should read the line, which is one line down. You see the line V'Hatzninon? One line down? So 2 lines down? So that line should be over here. It should be V'Hatzninon. How can you say that? It says Chen Atilson Shelis Mini Asavim Ein Mechayven Osol Nakish. Look at our mission that if the Tilson patch starts growing all sorts of grasses inside, you don't have to uproot the grass. Now, if it's nicha to you to have grass, if it's acceptable to you to have grass grow with fenugreek, so that should be a problem. Our mission should not permit it, because then it's kilayim, because it's not a weed, it's l'rotza. So l'chora, our mission contradicts the Tanai, which Yoshua made when he entered the land of Israel, because Yoshua made the Tanai that fenugreek is an exception, because by fenugreek the guy wants grass to grow alongside the fenugreek. Yet our Marash Mishnah says that grass with fenugreek is not kilayim. So it's a contradiction. L'chora, if you want the grass with fenugreek, it should be kilayim, because it's advantageous to you. So now go back a line. Rabbi Yaakov Bar B'Shem Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nachman said, "Kizhezora le'omi rimas nisa." This brisa, where Yoshua said that, where Yoshua made the Tanai and said you're not allowed to pluck out the grass from other people's fenugreek's field, it's where you're growing animal fodder. You're growing the fenugreek for animal fodder, and therefore in animal fodder, grass is advantageous, right? Where you're growing, because animals eat grass as well as they eat fenugreek. But where you're growing, however, fenugreek for human purposes, to make a spice out of it or whatever, so then grass is not advantageous. And that's our Mishnah, which says that if you have grass growing in the fenugreek, since it's something which you're not pleased with, that's why you don't have to uproot it, because it's not kilayim.
You're not worried about Marasayim, that people won't know that it's growing in for fodder and not for...
I guess not. I guess people knew. I guess in the old days, farmers knew what things was growing for. But you're right. Obviously, I'm not afraid of Marasayim. Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha, now skipping down to the next line, of course. Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha said, B'Shem Garmein, his own name. That was Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha's name. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nachman was Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha adding on his own name. Shehelas Lazera. That it's the same thing. Our mission is not necessarily he's planting for human beings, but rather he's planting for replanting, for seeds. Same idea, where you want the fenugreek seed, so then, in that case, the grass is a weed, and that's why it's not kilayim. Rabbi Yisrael said, now I got a problem with this. The Rabbi Yeshua only, did Yoshua ben Nun, who said it's also to gather, what? Yeah. He permitted all grass except for fenugreek, right? So what's Yeshua's biva? Chiloba Yeshua lefaresh elo over avera. You're saying that when is fenugreek okay? When Yeshua forbid you to take the grass from the fenugreek patch, where the guy wants the grass because it's machal be'ema. So who's this guy? The guy is growing the grass. What is he? It's a Russia, not a guy. So Russia is never avera. Why? Because what's he doing? He's growing kilayim. So why it's for machal be'ema? It's edible, so it's kilayim. So ask the Gemara, Yeshua is doing this guy a favor? Yeshua is saying, no, the guy who's growing fenugreek with his and grass together, him, you can't go and take the grass out of. Ask the Gemara, Yeshua only made this exception. No, it's for guys who would make growing kilayim. He said, well, since they want the grass and the fenugreek, you can't take it. You're making a takona for every avera. If the guy is over that avera kilayim, then you're going to ask him to take the grass because of gezel. If the guy didn't transgress the avera, then it's mutar mishum gezel. Then gezel is permissible. It's difficult. What kind of takona is Yeshua making? Heavy. So says Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi makes the proposition. The Gemara is going to reject this proposition, but the Gemara is never going to come up with a better alternative. You'll see. Says Heavy Loshani Hishazar Lazera. There's no difference if you plant the fenugreek to reseed, or maybe it's not to reseed. Maybe fenugreek seed is the spice. I'm thinking. I said before Lazera means to reseed. Maybe fenugreek seed is the spice in and of itself, which you get out of fenugreek. So for human consumption. So Lo Shani Hishazar Lazera makes a difference whether you're planting it for the seeds, Hishazar Lami, or whether you're planting it for animal fodder. In both cases, it's not going to be kilayim. So the Gemara says, "Vataninon." Wait a minute. If didn't we learn a Mishnah? V'chein tilson shel minei asavim v'chayvin osel solen nakesh. We said that in our Mishnah that if tilson grows grass, you're not chayav to be menakish, don't have to weed it out. And it should be im omer at. There's the word omer missing. Im omer at shadato alein. If you're going to say that he wants the grass there, yichayv lo solenakish. So there's kasha Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says no difference between animal fodder and seed. Says more there. So you're making things worse again. You're bringing the kasha back. So in that case, let's make you whole. How could our Mishnah means that? What are you saying? That the guy wants grass, no matter what, whether he's growing it for seed or he's growing it for animals. So if that's the case, how come our Mishnah lets the guy off the hook? Says more Rabbi Yaakov b'shem Rabbi Maisha. Rabbi Yaakov's name Rabbi Maisha. Says a shocking answer. The Gemara is not going to lie. It doesn't like this answer. Says, yeah, you want them, but you want them dead, not alive. What does it mean? You want the grass, but you want the grass uprooted and ready for your animal to eat. So that in of itself is enough to take it out of the parsha of Kilayim. It's true you want it, but you don't want it growing. You want it taken out. But that means somebody else can't come and take it. That's why Yeshua made it tonight. He said, nobody else can come and take it because I want it. But I don't want it growing. I don't want Kilayim. Where I want it, I want it accessible to me in order to take it out and give it to my animal.
While it's growing, it's okay to grow.
Well, that's the flaw in this argument, because while it's growing, it sounds like it's okay.
To be fodder, it has to grow.
Okay, right, that's right. So ask Gemara Me'ata if that's the case. If you follow the line of reasoning, Matzah Kilayim B'Kerem, you Asurim Mishum Gezel. If you find Kilayim in your Kerem, it should be us because of Gezel. Nobody should allow to be uproot your Kilayim from your Kerem. And there too, you want the grain, you just don't want it to grow, but you want the grain, so nobody else should be allowed to take it. And we know that they are allowed to take it. Now the Gemara brings down the same thing over again. Instead of name Rabbi Maisha, name Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, Lo Marken. Rabbi Yossi didn't say like this, but it's slightly different version, right? But same idea, different version. At the end, you want them, not now when they're growing. You want the end product. So it's as if they're uprooted in front of you. Me'ato, and now the Gemara asks the same question again. A Rabbi Yossi slightly different version, the same principle. Matzah kilayim b'kerem, fine kilayim mirkerem. You assume shum gezel, let it be us because of gezel. Shabasoifil choitzeben, because at the end you want them. Kilah kurim menachel farav. Says more of an answer which is I don't know. You see if you like this answer. Kan yesh lo emili kones. Says by the grass growing with the tilson. So there you want it when it's uprooted. Why? Because you give it with your fenugreek to your animal. But however, kan ein lo emili kones. Here the grapevines are not suitable for animals. You can't give grapes to animals. So therefore it can't go together with anything else. So the Gemara is saying, it's almost a Balbata Shechiluk, saying that we're over there in the case of the fenugreek, so there you want them when they're akurim because it's economically feasible for you to feed them together with the fenugreek to your animal. But here, with the grapes, it's not economically feasible for you to have those few blades of grass that are available for your animal, and therefore you don't want them even when they're akurim. Therefore, you'd much rather somebody came right now and uprooted them for a field that even took them for themselves. Okay? Says the Gemara, I don't like that. Rav Nachman Amar, Rabbi Mona. Rav Nachman said, "Nei Rabbi Mona, come on, give me a break." Hagatzmacha. Let's imagine the following scenario. Let's say, here there were grapes and grass together in the field. And that's Kilayim. But let's say right next to it is a fenugreek field. So then, you can gather together with the fenugreek. So in that case, you should be able to, in that case, l'chora, it should be exactly similar. That whatever we say about grass and fenugreek, that rotzu bohen akurim, wants of our Buddha, we should be able to say when grass is growing with the kerem and next to it is fenugreek in a different field, that rotzu b'kuma, because in both cases it's economically feasible to feed with the larger crop. Gemara doesn't answer. Just leaves it shver. Okay, mileon de Rabbanan. Now, the following statement of Rabbanan Pligan argues on the heter of on the heter which Rabbi Yossi said of fenugreek growing together with grass. Dom Rabbi Zvikam Shem the base Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Zvikam is the name of the house of Rabbi Yanai. Kol asvichin mutorim. All things. Oh, it should be asurin. Sorry. The Rashi changed it to asurin. All svichin, everything which grows wild in a field during Shemitah, are forbidden. Chutz, with the exception of mina olim besad debur, which grows in land which is left fallow, besad the near land which has already been plowed for motzai shvius, besad the kerem, that which grows in a vineyard, and there's two words missing, besad the zera, that which grows in a plant which in a field which already has which already has a different type of seed in it, and this is now a foreign plant. Now, let me just give a little bit of background here. Svichim are things which grow during Shemitah wild, and some svichim are also svichim which grow in regular fields during Shemitah are also. What svichim are mutter? Only svichim which grow in places which are not regular fields, out in the wild, in a field which is left fallow, field which is already plowed from motzai shvius. In those cases, svichim are mutter. Okay. Now it says here one of the cases svichim is mutter is soda zera. Okay. Plant which a field which is planted something else. Now says the Gemara v'amar misoda to v'amar misoda tilson. The v'amar is like in the Bavli, it's like v'yomar. It should say distinction. According to Rabbi Yossi, there's one field in which foreign plants are not considered to be problematic, and you like them there, and therefore it's also because of svichim and shvius. As we said, if you have a field full of barley, and chitim plants start growing in it, those svichim are mutter. Why? Because you don't like wheat in your barley field. Says the Gemara, like Rabbi Yossi, who said you always want grass in your fenugreek field. So why is that exception not mentioned? Why don't we mention in this brisa that there is one case in which a foreign implant grows in my field, and it's also because it's fichin, because I like it there. Grass growing in fenugreek. Now, why is this only different in Rabbi Yossi, not in Rabbanan? Because Rabbanan said you don't always want grass growing in fenugreek, only if it's for animal fodder. If it's for seed, you don't want it. So, according to Rabbanan, we could say the reason why the brisa didn't mention the fenugreek fodder plant case is because it's too obscure a case. It's a subdivision case of the general fenugreek case. But according to Rabbi Yossi, that in all fenugreek you like grass, whether it's for animal fodder, whether it's for seed. So the Mishnah should mention, the Brisa should mention that there's an exception to this rule. When is a foreign implant of svichin mutter? Only if it's not a fenugreek plot. Because a fenugreek plot, then you like the foreign grass in there. Okay? That's more Kasha. V'yomar, according to Rabbi Yossi, let it say, chutz misada tilson, shazor and lazera. Let's mention so that tilson is different, because tilson, even if you plant it for seed, you like the grass. Says Mar, Rabbi Yossi would say, you know what? You got a kasha from me. Got a kasha from me, that brisa. However, I'll bring you a raya. Milsa to Rabbi Yochanan Masaili. The ma'isa to Rabbi Yochanan about to bring is a raya for me. What's the ma'isa? Ma'isa b'echad shalokach yirka shogina min hagoy. So mice of a guy who bought a vegetable patch from a guy, and there was kilayim growing there. Asked Rabbi Yochanan, so he asked Rabbi Yochanan what to do. Amar lei, so he said to him, say go quickly, lokot, and grab the vegetables immediately before they become kilayim. Well, fi hashuk mechor, and go down to the marketplace and sell them. Hosi Rabbi Avo come Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Avo asked for Rabbi Yochanan, why does he have to do this immediately? V'atzinina, did we learn? We said if it's a place you want flat for storage purposes and various types of seeds sprout up, there's no kilayim because you don't want any of them. So here too, he doesn't want the kilayim. The goy was growing kilayim. He doesn't want kilayim. Says Mara Malay, Rabbi Yochanan said it's different. There, by the goren, everybody knows he doesn't want them. Why? Because goren, you don't want anything growing. So there, if stuff is growing together haphazardly, people know this is not an intent of kilayim. However, here people are not going to know that. People are going to say, how did that? We know he bought it from the guy. Maybe people say that he's really growing kilayim there. So therefore he has to immediately go quickly and uproot it before people get the wrong idea. Now says the Gemara, V'yosivna. Now, why didn't Rabbi Yochanan answer? Kan osir mishum gezel, v'kan muter mishum gezel. Why didn't Rabbi Yochanan give a simple answer to that question for our Mishnah? Let him say in our Mishnah, the guy doesn't want it, and therefore people are allowed to come in and take it. If I have grasses growing in my goren, I don't want them there, right? So anybody can come in and take them. There's no issue of gezel there. V'kan, that's as opposed to this case over here, which Rabbi Yochanan was dealing with. Here, it's also because of gezel, because here he wants to realize as much profit as he possibly can from the field, and therefore it's also because of gezel over here, and that's why there's kilayim over here. Why didn't Rabbi Yochanan say that dichotomy between our Mishnah and this case over here? Let me read that inside. The Yosidna, let him respond. Kan osir mishum gezel. Here, in the case of the field bought from the guy, so it's also for anybody else to gather the vegetables because the guy wants the vegetables. So therefore, in this case, there's a possibility of kilayim because of the guy's rotze b'kilmo. The kind arm in the Mishnah where it's talking about the guy muter mishum gezel, there's no gezel problem because he doesn't want he doesn't want to have that stuff going there all together, and therefore there's no kilayim problem either. So why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan give that answer? It must be, says Rabbi Yossi, that according to Rabbi Yochanan, in our Mishnah, it's also something which is also because of Gezel. And even though it's also because of Gezel, nonetheless, it's mutter. Nonetheless, there's no problem with kilayim. Why is that? Says Rabbi Yossi, he must be like Rabbi Yochanan, holds like me. That even though he's rotze b'kiyumo, how did he want kiyumo? Not planted, but he wants kiyumo harvested, already out of the ground. So Rabbi Yossi, since Rabbi Yochanan didn't answer that difference between his case and the Mishnah's and the Mishnah, it's a case where anybody's allowed to take them, that's why it's not Kilayim. Whereas this case, which came before him, this case for other people, will not be allowed to take them, and therefore it is Kilayim. Why didn't he answer that? It must be the Rabbi Yochanan holds that dichotomy doesn't exist. It must be Rabbi Yochanan holds, in our Mishnah, it's usher to come and take the grain which is growing, the grass in the fenugreek, or the grain growing in the goren, haphazardly, various different types together. Why is it usher? Must be because of Maitzvara. Why? How could it be usher and still be mutter in terms of Kilayim? It's because of Maitzvara, because he wants the grass, but he wants it plucked out. So therefore, you're not allowed to take it, but it's not Kilayim either, because he doesn't want it growing. He wants it dead, not alive. Says Mar, no. Maybe not. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan could have answered that there's a dichotomy. Some are this mutter because of Gezel, this because of Gezel. Kaidam Rabbi Yami, like Rabbi Yami said, Hashir Ma'ay B'Tshuvas, they're rich in answers. There are many answers could have given. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan could have given this answer as well. He could have said that this is mutter because of Gezel in our Mishnah, and it's also because of Gezel in this case, which you asked me over here. He didn't bother answering that. Oh, Yeva, or we can, that's like Yeheba, we could say concerning this, Kahidam Rabbi Nasa, like Rabbi Nasa said, Kiddushi's betrained Talmid Vu Meisiv Chad Minod. Rabbi Yochanan, two answers give, you only gave one of them. But really, Rabbi Yochanan could have answered that. So it's not a right for Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi was Medaik, that Rabbi Yochanan holds in our Mishnah, that's Osir Mishum Gezel, yet Mutter because of Kilayim. It must be because of his svara, that the guy wants it, but he wants it dead, not alive. Says Gemara, no. Rabbi Yochanan didn't mention that distinction between our Mishnah and the case which came before him, but he could hold of it and just didn't bother to mention it.
It's unusual term, most uses
Meisiv it is. Yeah, you're right. It is. Meisiv means to refute. So usually it means to ask a kasha, but here it means to refute with an answer. But you're right. It is different here. Okay. Harotu la'asos sadeu meishar meishar. Person wants to plant in his field rows of different crops. Mikol min. Each row a different crop. Besham remim shlosha tlomin shel pasiach. Besham says how much difference has to be between the rows? 3 furrow width of 3 furrows, which was about 2 amos. Ubesilam rim below osharoni the size of a yoke in the sharon, which is also about 2 amos. As it says, a krovin divrei lios kedivrei, that's similar shiur. Rabbi Zira, Rabbi now the Gemara gets fun. Rabbi Zira and Rabbi Lezer b'shem Rabbi Chia Ruba. Rabbi Zira and Rabbi Lezer both said the name Rabbi Chia the Great. Osa shtei amos al shtei amos. In the middle between the 2 furrows, it's got to be 2 amos and 2 amos. But umeitzer v'chafilu koshu. At the end of the furrows could be even a gap of a koshu, and that's picture number Aleph. See picture Aleph? In the middle of the furrows, there's got to be a gap of 2 amos. Oh, you got it over here. Hey, article copied Rabbi Kanievsky. In the middle between the furrows, it has to be. In the middle between furrows has to be 2 amos. But at the end of each furrow, it can narrow down to nothing. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yonah, because all my sign, all is how it looks. So that looks separate. We're going to get to this. Rabbi Yonah said, that's only if it's rows. But if you put a row next to your field, lo b'da, that means if you have a field, the shiur ha'chaka between 2 rows is 2 amos. But the shiur ha'chaka between 2 fields is 10 amos. Midrabanan. Midoraisa, how much is it? 6 tvachim. Midrabanan, it's 10 amos. So the thing is, so what if you have a field, and next to your field you want to plant a row, you have a field of wheat, and next to your field you want to plant a row of barley. There he says, what's the archaka you need? 10 amos, not 2 amos, 10 amos in that case. Because next to a field. Between 2 rows, the shiur of archaka is 2 amos. Between a field and a row, it's 10 amos. Says V'asya kait Rabbi Yanai, and our Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yanai. The Rabbi Yanai said the coolest thing in the world. I'm exaggerating. But he said, Yochel ana zara chelki. I can plant my field, which was 100 amos by 100 amos, esrin v'chamisha minim. 25 different types of grain. 25 over here and 25 over there, which I think is 50. I'm not sure. But how is he planning on doing that? Like a checkerboard. Look at picture number base. See picture number base? You can make your whole field a checkerboard, because as long as there's 2 amos, a 2 amos square, right, between the fields in the middle, so then they can narrow on the sides beyond that. So therefore you get a checkerboard affecting your field. How many checker spaces can you get in 100 by 100? I think 50, right? They're going to be 50 black and 50 red, right? So you get 25 on 25, which is 50. You understand what's going on here? Because each one of these is like a separate row, right? So as long as at some point there's a 2 amma distance, that's sufficient. Even though corners touch, right?
It's the same principle as ours.
Same principle as ours, just applied to an entire field as a checkerboard, as opposed to 2 rows right next to each other. Now, here the Gemara starts getting tricky. Gemara starts getting magic. What about by 2 fields? Now this is picture Gimel. I give the Yerushalmi credit for this. It's tricky here. You have 2 fields, one next to each other. I got to look at my picture. You have 2 fields, one next to each other. So normally you require 10 amos between the fields. But what about if you have a field, then 10 amos, then a row, and then on the other side you have you have a field, then a row next to it, not 10 amos between field of chitim, then a gap, then a row of chitim. Then you have on the other side a field of sorim, then a gap, then a row of sorim. And the rows are next to each other, not the fields. So if the fields are next to each other, how much would you need? 10 amos. But now that the rows are next to each other, what would you need? 2 amos. Does it work? That's Yerushalmi's question. Or is this like Ha'arama, right? Can I utilize the legal loophole of the kula of having only 2 amos between rows? Okay? Creative. That's question number 1. Question number 2. That's the one we just did. Now, new case. We're going to see later on. The halacha is, take a look at Dalit now. The halacha is, if you have your sorim on the left of the picture, your barley, you can put a right hard fast against your friend's wheat. That's permissible. Why is that permissible? Because people know, oh, that's my barley, that's his wheat. There's no minor sign. Everybody knows the different fields. Okay? What about now, however, between, again, in this case, that's permissible, right? Now, in order to plant chitim next to the sorim, I only have to be marchik 2 amos, right? Chitim next to sorim is 2 amos. Then I plant my chitim on the other side, right? Chitim shalom. Is that okay? Because again, here the same idea applies. I really, between my chitim and my sorim, my field of chitim and my strip of sorim need 10 amos. But here I want to avoid that. By putting a row of chitim in the middle, am I allowed to do so? Okay? Can the row of chitim obviate the need to have 10 amos between my chitim and my sorim? I think that's the case. Let me make sure.
Yes, we wouldn't even need that middle row of chitim. Because
Did you see that woman? She's going to try to find a raya, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What?
if you eliminate this middle row,
No, it's your sorim.
his own soul.
Your own sorim. That's the thing. You want.
Why do you need that? Why do you need the row of chitim in the middle? You can eliminate the middle.
No, so you don't need 10 chit because you don't. Otherwise, you need 10 amos between your field and your sorim.
Because this was a row here. This was your row.
Right, that's your row of sorim.
So you don't need this middle one.
You do.
It's like a prior diagram.
No, you can't. In this case, you can't put your chitim hard and fast against your own sorim unless you're allowed to put a row in the middle.
It's not hard fast up against it.
No, you need 10 amos.
It's not a field. This was a row. It's just this was your row because this was the other guy's field.
Between your own field of chitim and your own row of sarim, you need 10 amos.
Then why didn't you have it here?
Yeah.
That's the shaila over here. But since they're both rows, maybe all I need is 2 amos here.
No, but between this row and this field.
Those are both chitim.
Yeah, here the ball has to
Those are both chitim.
That's why.
These are in picture. These are both chitim. That's why no archaka is needed over here at all. The shaila is the fact that I have a row here and a row here. Does this only require 2 amos, even though they're fields as the bookends, right? That's over here. The shaila is over here. In this case here, am I allowed? I want to be marchi from this sorin, only 2 amos, not the full 10 amos, right? So can I do this? Plant my sorim hard and fast against his field, which is okay, right? I'm using that loophole, and then using another loophole of putting a row of chitim between my field of chitim and my sorim, and avoiding the 10 amos on this side, and just having to have 2 amos. Okay. The question is, how much of these haramas do I allow? Here it's a double harama, because I'm putting my barley right up against him, and besides that, I'm putting a row of chitin on my side. Do I allow this double harama? That's the shiloh over here. Af b'churva. Now we're asking the question: what about in a churba, meaning in a desolate area? Oh yeva, do we apply here? Do we say here kai damar shlogish davar shlogish said b'shem chizkiya rosh turah bami churba mutter? This is the case which we had previously. In other words, over here, this is picture number A. I have a row of chitim. I want to plant next to it 1 stalk of barley. Can I do that because of the imaginary Rosh Tor principle? That's the dotted triangle. Can I apply the imaginary Rosh Tor principle which we learned in the previous parak? Says the Gemara, none of these questions are answered, right? Rabbi Yomer, Maschu Beis Rova, Meitzav Elchad Shlosha Tlom Mishal Pasiach. Between 2 fields, you need 10 amos. However, you can narrow that distance, just what you said in our mission between 2 rows. You can narrow that distance until you reach 3 furrows, the gap, and that's the picture of Vav. You can't narrow to mamish hard up like between 2 rows, but if you have a gap of 10 amos in the middle, you can narrow to 2 amos at the edges. This is between fields, not between rows. Okay. Okay, so between fields, you start with 10 amos, you narrow to 2 amos. Says more of a lace later Rebbe. I'm sorry, it should be Rabbanan. The lace later Rabbanan tfua b'tfua base rova. Ask the Gemara. Hey, in our Mishnah, how come Rabbanan allowed 2 amos? What about the shiur of 10 amos? There's more common rule for the other field. Does the other for a meshar, which means at the ends you can get mamish hard up against the other one? Rabbi Yehuda said Rebbe's more machmir. Sof Meishar l'Rebbe. The end of a Meishar for Rebbe is like Tchilas Meishar l'Rabbanan. In other words, in Rebbe's case, at the end, because it's a field, and you start off with 10 amos, you can only end off with 2 amos. You can't end off with Gumamish right up against the other. Rabbi Eliezer Shoal, what if you had a field of less than 2 amos? You want to make 2 rows there. Nishmina min adol. It's sort of for the following case. Rabbi Eliezer bar Shimon and Rabbi Yossi ben Yochanan Isha Noach Omar Bigdoilo 50 amos. They had a different shiur. They held the shiur achoka. If you have a big field, is 50 amos. Not like our Mishnah, not like anything we've learned. But they said upktana in a small field, al pi ruba. Then what's the shiur? The majority of the field. So my meilush nasu shiur l'gdoila. If these who gave such a massive shiur, 50 amos, lo nasu shiur tani, they didn't give a shiur by a small field, they said just a row. Chachamish lo nasu shiur l'gdoila, Chachamish didn't give such a great shiur. Lo koshkein shlo yitnu shiur l'ktana. It's a kavachomer, they're not going to have a shiur for a small field. So meaning, if you have a field which is less than 2 amos wide, as long as you leave the majority of the field, in other words, 1.1 amos between the rows, that's sufficient. If you have a larger field, then it's up to 2 amos. Gap, no more is necessary. If you have a smaller field, the majority of the field is all that's necessary to be in the gap, no more than that. Okay, and there must be a minimum gap, I assume 6 tefachim. is the minimum gap, because that's the gap meter rights which is required. But as long as there's the minimal gap, it doesn't have to be 2 amos unless there's enough room to make 2 amos. If it's a field which is narrower than 2 amos, all you need between the 2 rows is the majority. We'll stop here for tonight.